Aloha, it's Robert with Blue Planet Surf Shop. Today we're going to go over the Prone Carver foil boards. They're the new high performance boards we came out with, brand new for 2020. We just got a few in the shop. I'm just going to go over a little bit the design, the features, the construction. So the Carver foil boards come in 3 different sizes. The 310 is the smallest, then we have the 4.6 and the 5.2. And then these are the volume in liters, the widths, the thicknesses. What differentiates these is they're basically smaller and lower volume and more high performance for riders that kind of know what they're doing already. It's not necessarily the best board for beginners. If you're a beginner, our easy foiler, a little bit longer boards will help you kind of glide into the wave a little bit easier, makes it easier to paddle and so on. So these are more for high performance foiling, where you want the minimum amount of board to use while you're foiling. Makes it a little bit harder to catch the wave when you use a smaller foil board, but once you're up on the foil, having a smaller board just makes it much easier to control the wing. A good way to think of a foil board is a foil delivery device. Basically, you want the board to paddle well, to get out to the surf, to catch the wave, but then as soon as you have enough speed, you get up on the foil, and the board is just a platform for your feet to control the foil. So the smaller the platform, the better in a way, but you also want it to be able to catch the wave and make it easy to paddle. So some of the features we incorporated to achieve this is obviously very small length, very small size, kind of minimize the size, and if you're a good rider, you can make it work, but for beginners, it's usually better to have something a little bit longer that makes it easier to paddle and catch the wave. We have these beveled rails. If you look from the rails have a nice bevel to them, so the bottom's flat surface is actually reduced. And if you think of like carving turns where you're leaning the board and the foil into a turn, this beveled edge will give you a little bit more clearance on the water, so it's less likely to touch the water. Our newer boards also have a little bit narrower tail, so you got less area in the tail to kind of catch on the wave. You know, a little bit pulled in on the nose. We do have kind of a rounded off nose a little bit. We don't have really hard edges up here. And we find that when you do touch down, like you touch down on the wave, this is kind of a softer entry into onto the water than if you have hard edges or concave or something like that in the nose that kind of sticks to the water or can catch a rail and so on. So having a little bit softer in the front seems to work well. And then obviously the harder edges in the back help create lift. So when you're catching the wave, it helps create lift to take off sooner. So another design feature of the Carver Prone Surf boards are the rocker line. You know, basically we kept it pretty flat in the planing area and the tail for lift and speed, generating speed, and it does have a little bit of nose rocker, but it has less rocker than our easy foiler prone boards, the first edition or the more entry-level ones. So by keeping the rocker a little bit lower, it basically increases performance. It gives you a little bit more wetted surface when you're paddling and so on, a little bit more lift taking off. And you do have to have a little bit more control of the board, so if you touch down, it's a little bit, or if you push the nose down, it's a little bit more chances of sinking the nose or the nose going under because it has less rocker, but it increases the performance. So for a little bit more advanced riders, they can make use of the whole surface area of the board basically. So let's talk a little bit about construction of the boards. This one here is our bamboo composite construction. It's a little bit lower cost than the full carbon. It has basically epoxy, bamboo veneer. It's a sandwich of glass, bamboo, and glass. So it's a pretty solid construction. It also has Kevlar bands on the rails, nose and tail. So it has like those key areas reinforced with Kevlar, which is a very resilient material. So there's a strip of carbon covering the box, the foil strongbox, that connects basically to the bottom of the board. There's extra carbon underneath here, reinforcing the box from the bottom. So it gives you really nice solid I-beam construction that connects to the stringer of the board as well. Inside here is a stringer as well. So this is a really nice construction, strong, solid, and less expensive than a full carbon board. So this here is the full carbon construction. So this one has, you know, basically inside the same features with the extra carbon reinforcement under the feet and over the foil strongbox. In addition, it has carbon, layer of carbon top and bottom, and it also has the Kevlar rails. So it's a lightweight construction, slightly lighter than the bamboo. We don't make our boards super light because we try to have a nice ratio of strength to weight. We want these boards to last, and like I said, foiling puts extreme forces on the board, and performance-wise, I just feel like having a little bit more reinforcement and stiffness in the board will translate into better performance. Of course, we have in the tail the foil strongbox, which is our patented foil system. It has a tuttle box in the middle and then the plate mounts on the sides. So it's a multi-use system. You can use it for plate mounts or tuttle mounts. Very versatile. And another great feature is the strength. Basically, it attaches to the deck of the board, has a direct connection between all these. There's a carbon plate that connects all these together, and then more carbon covering the whole thing. And there's a stringer inside the tuttle box as well that connects to the stringer in the board. So that gives you a lot of structural stability. A lot of early foil boards kind of assume that you can just put regular fin boxes in the board and it's going to be fine because it works for fins. But what a lot of people don't realize is the extreme forces that a foil has on the board. So a lot of times the board becomes the weak spot. And for example, the board gets tumbled in a wave. The forces of the foil on the board are very high. It has a lot of leverage and big surface area. So it's completely different than just a regular fin because it has huge amounts of forces. So if there's just like a little foam insert with two boxes in there, that whole thing can rip off from the foam underneath, rip off the whole glass it's attached to, and so on. So this portion of the board, especially the front end here, needs to be extra reinforced on a foil board. There's definitely something to be said for having a lighter board because it's easier to get up, easier to pump, and so on. But you also want to make sure that it's strong enough for the extreme forces of foiling. And when you're foiling too, you push up and down with your front foot when you're pumping. That translates through the inside of the board, through the mast, into the front wing of the foil. So all the connections have to be super solid. So in terms of what size to use for wet rider, we have those three sizes. An important consideration is definitely the volume: 36 liters, 45 liters, and 56 liters. So the rider weight will make a difference. If you're heavier, you'll need more volume to float you. Another consideration is, the conditions you paddle in. If the water's smooth, you don't have a very long paddle out to the waves. And the waves are fairly easy to get into, maybe with a little bit of rolling white water or something. You can get away with a smaller board. If you have a really long paddle, if you have to paddle the board upside down going over reef, and if the takeoff is rougher or a little bit more tricky, then having a bigger board or a little bit more length and volume can help you out. It makes it a little bit easier to catch the wave and so on. So, but basically, the idea is to minimize the amount of board when you're on the foil. So you want enough board to make it comfortable to paddle and catch the wave, but as small as possible, basically. All right, thanks for watching this little introduction of the Carver Foilsurf boards. If you have any questions, just give our shop a call. The guys are great at answering any questions you may have. Also, I have a link down below to our website where you can check out all the specs and details. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and take care. See you on the water. Aloha.